Today I'd like to talk to you about the ColorMunki device and how we can use it to create an ICC profile for our display. We're going to do that on a Mac using a standard screen that just has brightness control. So that would be comparable to a iMac, a MacBook Pro, or a MacBook Air. So before we get into the details how exactly we're going to do that, let's first talk about why we bother to create an ICC profile in the first place. Consider walking into a TV store. You see a wall of TVs, and one thing I always notice is that they are all slightly different and some are really different. There's not one uniform behavior of those TVs. It's the same for displays. So what we try to do with creating an ICC profile is the following. Let me make a drawing to explain. When we would consider this to be the ideal behavior of a display, and we buy a certain display, the color might be off here. And if we buy another one, the colors might be off here. And if we buy a really good one, the colors might be off here. Still off, but not as much. So basically what we try to do with the ICC profile is get the color behavior of each of those displays to be as close as possible to the ideal behavior of a display. So that's what we aim to do. Now we're going to do that using this device, the ColorMunki, and that needs to be plugged in to our USB port. And it of course comes with software, so we're going to launch that. It's the ColorMunki Photo in this case. There are two varieties in ColorMunkis, the ColorMunki Photo and the ColorMunki Design. The Photo is black, the Design is white. That's not the main difference. The main difference is that the Photo is geared towards the photographer and the Design is geared towards the designer. So it can do the same things, but the default values set in the software are usually a bit different. So we'll cover all of those settings in the video. The first choice we get is, do we want to match my printer to my display, profile my display, or profile my printer? Well, we're going to start by profiling our display. Then the next question we get is, do we have an LCD screen, laptop, or projector? If we have LED, you would choose LCD as well. It asks us what type of display we have, so it knows which kind of controls are available and are not available. Next question is, do we want to use the easy or the advanced method? For now we're going to stick to easy. Later on in this video we're going to show you what the advanced options do, but for now we'll stick to easy. So we click on next. And this device is going to measure for us, so any device that does good measurements needs to be calibrated itself. So we do that by rotating the head so it lines up with the display, and we click on Calibrate. And what it now does, it measures a white reference tile, and because it's white and it's getting a value, it knows it should be white and can adjust for that. So it only takes a couple of seconds and makes sure that your measurements are accurate. So we do rotate the head back again to its original position, that way more easy. So line it up again at the spacing down, and we click on next again. Now we need to place the ColorMunki device on the screen, but before you do, make sure that the shutter at the bottom of the ColorMunki is open, because if it's not, you'll just be measuring black. So we place it on the screen using the bag that is supplied with the ColorMunki, and it works as a counterweight, so it stays in place when we hang it over the display. We click on next, and now the software will communicate with the display and the device and start the measurements. It will go from all primary colors, from red in high levels of brightness to low level of brightness, then go to green, then go to blue, and finally do a gray balance. By doing that, it can do all colors because all the colors on your display are built up using red, green, and blue anyway. The process takes about 5 minutes, and it needs to be repeated on a regular basis because the display itself will never be consistent in its lifetime. So the brightness level will go down You notice that one old monitor, usually you have to turn up the brightness to full percentage when it gets quite old. So you have to compensate for the loss of brightness in your display. And it's not hard to do. It's simple. It's a standard procedure you do on a monthly basis, and if you do it on a monthly basis, you will have a consistent display. So it's done. I'm going to take the device off, and it now presents us with a name for our ICC profile. I have the habit of adding CM for ColorMunki and then using easy to identify the way I did this profile. And I'm going to hit save. And the profile is complete, and it's now installed into my system, and I can get a reminder set for every week or up to 4 weeks. I use 4 weeks. And then click next. Then we get a screen that shows us what the color behavior was of the screen before we did the profiling, and what we did get when we done the profiling. So you see a change in colors. It's more neutral, it's more balanced, so it works quite easy, works quite well. Now you could say we're done, but that would be skipping the advanced part. So in this next section we're going to cover the advanced method of profiling your display. But before we do that, and I'll explain later on why, we're going to open our system preferences and switch to displays. Move that slightly to the right. And we start again with profiling my display. Then instead of the easy, we're going to choose advanced. Now I get an extra question here, which is, do we want to set the luminance level of my display based on my current ambient light conditions? What does that mean? Well, the current light and ambient light determines the brightness level I should set at my monitor, at my display, to see the colors accurately. Compare that to walking outdoors with your laptop. If you don't adjust your brightness, you don't see anything. And if you use your laptop late at night when there's not a lot of light, you need to put your brightness lower to see the colors right. So the same thing you need to do on a display where you do your color adjustments. So we can have the device help us set the right brightness level. If you've done that before, you can just enter the measured value, the suggested value from the measurement here. So you just enter it instead of measure it each time. You want to be in a consistent ambient light. If your ambient light changes too much, that's not a good thing, because that means the perception of color will change too, and you need to profile your display often to get a consistent behavior. So get a consistent ambient light, and it's easier to get consistent colors. Now, next question is, which kind of target white point do we want for our display? D65 default, D55, D50, or native? What does that mean? Well, the target white point of our display means what color do we get when we display white. So RGB 255, 255, 255. You'd say, well, that's white. But what other color is there? Well, white depends on the light. So the light color determines what color you see in the white. Compared to a single sheet of paper, if you hold it up at sunrise, it's not going to be white because the light shining on it will be very warm, very red. So it will look much more warm than at noon. And again, it goes down to a less red, more bluish color as the sun sets. So the D value expresses the color temperature. The higher the D value is, the more bluish, the more hard the color will be. So D65 is the default value for photography. That's just a standard. Light can be anywhere from 3000 up to 8000 sunlight. But D65 is a standard for photography. The D55 is the old standard that was used in photography when we had film to produce photo prints. Because the color paper we used then had a color white point of D55. And the D50 is still a commonly used standard within the printing industry. So if you want to take your photos to a printer, digital or analog, that will be printed as profile using D50 light. So they will view your image printed on a viewing booth that has D50 light as well. So it's important to choose the right D value for the purpose of where your file is going to. Now the native one, the last one, you never want to use, because that's the native color white point of your monitor, which is usually very high. It can be up as high as 9300 Kelvin. So we're going to stick to D65 for now. The differences in each of those I will show at the end of this video, so you can tell what kind of differences you get. We are going to click on next. And we're going to do something additionally now. Instead of just measuring the screen, we're going to measure the ambient light. Now there is an ambient light sensor at the top of the device, so we're going to take it out and rotate the head up so it points towards this light sensor, ambient light sensor. And we click on next, and we have to place the device next to our display, and we click on measure. And it's now measuring the ambient light, which is 767 lux, and that corresponds to a suggested brightness level of our screen of 117 candela per square meter. You don't have to write that down, the software will remember it for you and will get your brightness level to the right point. So we click on next. We have to put the device back to its normal measuring position and put it back into its bag. And we click on next, and we place the device on the display again. And we hit next. So it's now going to repeat the process we did in the easy mode, but it's going to add the ambient light correction. So additionally, besides just measuring the basic colors, it does a contrast test and then a brightness test. And when it gets to the brightness test, we will see if the brightness of our screen is okay, too high or too low. So it is actually much too high. The measured white luminance we have on our display is 181, and the target white luminance is 117. So we turned our brightness up too high. Now the easiest way to get your brightness down is to use your keyboard, because every time you hit your keyboard brightness minus key, you'll see the brightness level go down. And it takes a while for it to settle, so don't be too hasty. We're getting there closer now. 128, 125, 122, 116, 117. Well, it's actually spot on. 118. It's just rising it just a little bit. 119. So it's still a bit higher. 120. It takes a while before it settles. So it's hard to get to the exact right value. We can try another minus, but then we're at 115, so we're too low. 114 even. So to get to the exactly right value, we can use a little trick. If you go to the bottom right of your screen, you see we have a drag icon there, and we can drag the white to the left. And if we then hit our Command Tab key, we can go to System Preferences. And because we opened up the display preferences before we did that, we now get to a brightness slider. And that slider corresponds to the values we get with setting the brightness, but it also does more fine-tuning. Because if I do a plus here, we see a step that's big, and it's going from 116 to 124. And if I use the slider, I can use more defined steps, more steps in between, and I can get exactly the right value. So 117 should be, it's not 119, or 118. I'm going to go for the exact value. So 118 still, and 117. Now it's perfect. So then we click on next, and the device automatically, the software automatically goes to full screen again, so you don't need to set it yourself. So that's how you set your brightness level exactly right, if you don't have enough control on your brightness keys. If you use a system that's Lion, you need to do it this way. If you are pre-Lion, you could still do it using a combination of keys to get more steps in between your brightness. I think it was the function key, I'm not sure, function control or command, I'm not sure. Any of those keys will get you finer steps in between the brightness, but within Lion that's no longer an option, so you need to use this little trick. So the process of measuring your screen is the same. It goes through red, green and blue and a gray balance check. And it still takes not more than about 6 minutes to do the entire thing, so it's definitely worth doing on a regular basis to get a more consistent display. It's almost done now. And we take the device off, and we are going to alter the name again, because this is still a ColorMunki device, but this one was set with the advanced mode at April, and the Cinema D65 is the name and the white point we used. So we hit save, and it's complete. Then we set a reminder again if we want to. And we click on next, and we get a before and after, and you will notice that there is now a brightness difference in the before and after, because we adjusted for the ambient light, and because we did that, the profiles do not look the same. So we actually had a display that was giving us too much brightness, and therefore it could not give us the correct colors exactly because it was too bright. And now it's much better. So that's how you use your ambient light correction. So the effect of the white point, let's go into that a bit more, because the white point you choose is quite vital to the colors you get on screen. Now, I could go back and go profile my display in each of the 4 variations that are available, but that'd be kind of boring to watch. So what I did is I did that before, and I'm going to copy those into the system. First you need to know where you're going to copy those. So I'm going to minimize ColorMunki Photo for a minute, and if we go to the color part of the display, we see here the 2 profiles we just created, the easy one and the advanced one. See, this is the same as the before and after button. And this was our starting point, the Cinema profile, which is not a measured profile, but just a factory profile. So this is the right one we use, but we want to add profiles to it to show the difference in D65 to D50 and native. So if we hold our mouse still, you see it is located at the library ColorSync profiles folder. So if we open up a Finder window, we can get there. So we have in Documents, we have a Profiles folder. These are the profiles I previously measured and stored. Now to get to the system profile location, we use again the Finder window, and we use a new window, of course, new Finder window, and drag that down a little bit. And we are going to use the Go function and then use the Alt key to get to Library. See, if I hit my Alt key, Library appears. And if I choose Library, I there have ColorSync and I have Profiles. So that's how you get to your Profiles folder within Lion. So you choose your profiles, all of them, and I will just copy them in there. Now if I just close these because I don't need them anymore, if I go back to my display and switch tabs so I get back to color, I see all the other profiles I copied in there. And let's show the effect not just on the gray balance but also on a photo. So let's open up a photo beside the screen. Now if you look at the native behavior of the monitor, that was quite blue. The D65 one is somewhat less blue. D55, again less blue. D50, much less blue, or more yellow if you like. You will get used to the gray balance of your monitor over time. If you first switch from a D65 to a D50, you will think that's very yellow. But exactly the same thing happens if you look at a D50 screen for a long time and then switch to a D65 like this, you'll think, ooh, that's blue. Your eye adjusts to what you see and you get used to it and you consider that to be neutral. But they're all good. There's not one that's bad in here. There's just different color standards. So the white point D50 is your printing target white point. So the D55 is the one you use for film, and the D65 is the one you use for photography. So that's how you use the different varieties. And of course, if you don't like one of them, you can just simply delete them here, or go to your folder and delete them from that folder. Okay, let's close these down and go back to the ColorMunki. That was the profile my display part. We have separate videos on how to match your printer to your display and profile your printer using the ColorMunki, but this basically covers all the functionality that's inside profiling your display. Now, the device itself is accurate. The software is easy to use. It has the advanced features, so it can do the things that are more specific as well, but it also has the easy approach to get you at least a better calibrated and profiled screen than without profiling. So basically, I'd say it's a good device and easy to use. Hope you found this video useful, and I'd like to thank you for watching.